I'm curious, when you first started, like there's a difference between making something where people sign up and making something where people keep coming back, right? What was it, you were talking about the way you measured people's behavior. What was the feature that kept people coming back to Facebook over and over again once they created their profile?
I mean, I think it really just gets down to what makes humans human, right? I mean, this comes back to my studying psychology and all that, but I mean, the human brain is kind of uniquely wired to process things about people, right? It's like when I look out, I see faces. I don't see, chairs or the room around people. It's like we're hardwired to think about people. I mean, there are whole parts of the visual cortex that just process the slightest kind of micro movements of your face to process emotion. I mean, this is like what people are and what fascinates them, and it's how we process the world. I heard this study recently that I think is interesting, which is that most humans, if you take an MRI when they're dreaming, they dream about social interactions, and humans are the only animal that does that. So now, okay, but there was no service online that, I mean, when I thought about the internet before Facebook, there were all these things. I mean, I thought Google and search engines were amazing, right? You can type in something and get access to any information that you wanted, but you couldn't learn about the people around you, right? And because most of that information isn't public and just out there ready to be indexed by some search engine. So there had to be a service that gave people the power to share the things that they wanted and control it in the way that they wanted. And Facebook did that. And I think that it's, one definition of technology that I think is interesting is it extends some natural human capacity, right? So glasses or contacts extend your ability to see, right? Steve Jobs once famously compared a computer to being a bicycle for your mind, right? And basically extending your ability to think. And I mean, the word computer is the Latin think together, right? So it's like you're thinking together. A social network, I think, extends people's very real social capacity. I mean, you hear all these approximations. I mean, there's this famous Dunbar's number. Humans have the capacity to maintain empathetic relationships with about 150 people, communities about 150 people. I think Facebook extends that. Right?
Do you see evidence of that within Facebook, by the way? Do you see certain things that stop at 150?
Naturally, when people sign up, the average amount of friends that they get is around 150, but then over time it can expand and you can keep in touch and stay in touch with many more people. So I think it's like, so given that, I actually think one of the lessons from that is like do something that's fundamental, right? I mean, I think a lot of people and a lot of the companies that I see are operating on small problems, right? And it's cool if you want to be an entrepreneur and solve what you're primarily trying to do is build a company and solve some tangible problem. But I think that the most interesting things operate on these phenomena in the world which are really just fundamental to how humans or the world operate.
So what you did was something that was fundamental for a small market, and then you just expand the market from beyond Harvard students to everyone, but Harvard students are sufficiently like other people that it grows.
And it was fundamental for me, right? It's like I felt this need really acutely. I really wanted this, right? And and then I think that's one of the things that I think we were lucky about in kind of the expansion of the market was that it turned out that this wasn't something that was just for college students. Almost everyone in the world has friends and family and want to stay in touch with those people, so it ended up being a pretty ubiquitous service.
In retrospect, this is a bit of a controversial question perhaps, but in retrospect, do you think MySpace had a chance once you started and you got all the college students? I mean, the college students are arguably like the center of gravity socially, right? You own all the college students. It feels like, from the point you start expanding out of Harvard, MySpace might not have known it. Maybe you didn't even know it, but it seems like in retrospect they were doomed.
I don't see it that way, actually.
They could have won.
No, it's not about winning and losing. It's about doing something that's valuable, right? And there are more than one
social network? Not really.
There are many. I mean, my view of the world is that almost every product in category is going to get transformed and reimagined to be social. So there were things that MySpace did that Facebook has never done. MySpace, I think, was a much better service early on for meeting new people, right? Facebook was never primarily about meeting new people. It was about staying connected with the people that you knew and kind of mapping out the real relationships that existed. Now, I think part of the issue is they saw us growing and they felt threatened by that and tried to copy what we were doing. And that's like, you're never going to win that way, right? I mean, I think of all these interesting social services and apps that are getting built today. I mean, think about all the new apps that you guys install on your phones. There are so many interesting things, and 8 out of the top 10 iOS apps plug into Facebook. 50% of the top 400 apps plug into Facebook. They're all kind of socially integrated in these ways, but companies that are getting started now that are just trying to copy the stuff that the other companies are doing just aren't successful.
By the way, how are we doing for time? Is there anybody in